Welcome to our February edition of Let's Get Growing. In February, spray or mow those winter weeds and be sure to put out your pre-emergent. Don't use weed and feed. That's not good for your grass. And a well-balanced fertilizer like a 15-5-10, a 3-1-2 ratio, like I said, 15-1-10, 21-7-14. I think you're getting the picture. Main thing is check the bag and make sure it has sulfur in it, because sulfur will change the pH of your soil and make those nutrients that are already there more readily available. Mulch the bare soil in all areas and go ahead and replenish the mulch everywhere. Cut your perennial deadheads off the tops and add them to the compost pile, because they're going to start sprouting out pretty soon and we need to get the dead off now. We left the dead on during the winter to protect those little buds down in the ground. Now's the time to go ahead and prune back all those perennials, including your winter grass. Don't cut your winter grass too far too low. We want to keep it at least 18 inches above the soil. Now is a good time if you want to add drip irrigation. It's done very easily. You're just going to remove that top layer of bark mulch that you've been adding all winter long and all summer long and put that on a tarp. And then put your compost into the soil. And last but not least, put that drip irrigation down. Cover it with about 6 or 7 layers of newspaper and cover that newspaper with mulch, and you'll be ready to go this spring. You can continue the major pruning of your trees this month. Make sure to get it done as soon as possible. Cut your ground cover back around the 15th and make sure that you're doing your lyrope, your Asiatic jasmine. Those you can just raise your mower up to its highest height, mow it, bag it, add it to the compost pile. Prune your roses back by 50% before February 22nd. We don't want to do much pruning after that because the buds will already be setting. So prune them, but make sure the older canes go first. For every old cane, you want a new cane. Old canes are indicated by woody growth. New canes will be a green, bright color. Last but not least, feed the birds. Today we're going to transplant an orchid, and you probably have seen these in your local grocery store grown in these little tiny pots. They are a smaller orchid. They have smaller blooms, but they do need to be repotted. Let me show you what I mean. This is the decorative container, no holes in it. Then this is the container it was grown in the nursery. And then you can see that it is quite root bound. Now, in its original container, I'm just teasing the roots apart a little bit. In its original container, this was grown in sphagnum peat moss, like they make hanging baskets out of. But we're going to transplant into a friable, loose moisture control potting soil. See, I've just kind of loosened up the roots. So what I've mixed up here is bark mulch and potting soil. And I'm going to add lava rock. And lava rock is porous and it's light, but it'll help maintain moisture but drain. See, it has little holes in it. I'm just going to mix this up with the lava rock, bark mulch, and you can see this is pine bark mulch, and I use it because it has tannic acid in it and it's very acidic, and it helps the plants grow a little bit better, particularly orchids. Because orchids in their native environment grow on trees. They're epiphytic. That means that they'll live on something, but they're not taking anything out of it. So in its native environment, it would grow on a tree or in a bog area, maybe on a trunk or, you know, a big old log. But you can see there's no roots on the inside. They're all to the outside. So I'm just going to kind of tease them apart. I'm going to add this mixture to the container. And I'm going to kind of build up a little mound in the middle. Then I'm going to spread this little baby's roots out. You can see I'm going to leave it up kind of high in the container. And it doesn't matter if the roots are sticking out, because they're pretty much aerial roots anyway. So you just turn it clockwise, rotate it, fill it. And I have most of the lava rock on the bottom to facilitate drainage. And then you'll notice that this pot has holes all in it. Those are called orchid pots, so that you can get good drainage and also good air movement. And you can see I've left the roots basically on top of the soil. It's anchored in the pot. It's not wiggling, so it's a good, solid planting. Remember, if a plant's moving, it won't root. So don't stuff it in too hard. We just want to barely put it in. And then we'll water it thoroughly and leave it in a bright location. Usually a kitchen window works really well. You can also add decorative rocks such as this to add a little contrast and a little interest to the container. Just remember, water thoroughly and then don't water till they're dry. This is going to bloom in the spring and it's dormant during the winter. That's when you repot, is during the winter on orchids. All your other houseplants hold off till spring. So do all these things in February and you too will have a beautiful landscape this spring.